Welcome to Fall Asleep Channel. Tonight, we explore how the body and brain quietly respond to pressure, a calm narrative with interesting facts. If you enjoy peaceful stories like this, you are warmly invited to subscribe and return whenever you need to slow down. Now allow yourself to get comfortable and enjoy quiet and pleasant rest. Let's begin. Pressure is not an enemy of the body or the brain. It is a signal, a measure of demand meeting capacity. Long before modern life, biological systems learned to respond to pressure as information about threat, effort, urgency, and survival. The nervous system evolved not to eliminate pressure, but to interpret it quickly and respond efficiently. When demand appears, the brain shifts state. Attention narrows. Energy is redirected. Systems unrelated to immediate response reduce activity. This redistribution is not emotional. It is logistical, a quiet reorganization designed to keep the organism functional under load. At the center of this process is the brain's prediction machinery. The brain is constantly asking what is required next. When pressure increases, prediction accelerates. Future possibilities are scanned more rapidly. Uncertainty becomes expensive. Clarity becomes valuable. The amygdala contributes by tagging potential risk. The prefrontal cortex weighs options. Deeper brain structures initiate physiological change. Heart rate adjusts. Blood flow shifts. Breathing patterns alter. None of this requires conscious awareness. The body moves before thought arrives. Pressure activates the sympathetic branch of the nervous system, not as panic, but as readiness. Muscles receive more oxygen. Glucose is released into the bloodstream. Senses sharpen. Pain perception may temporarily decrease. This state is efficient in short bursts. It allows focused effort and quick reaction. But pressure is rarely brief in modern environments. It often persists without clear resolution. Deadlines extend. Responsibilities overlap. Uncertainty remains open-ended. The nervous system does not distinguish between physical threat and abstract demand. It responds to both through the same channels. Sustained activation begins to reshape regulation. Cortisol levels rise to support ongoing energy availability. Adrenaline maintains alertness. These hormones are not harmful by design. They support adaptation, but their effects depend on duration. Prolonged exposure alters feedback loops. Receptors adjust. Sensitivity changes. What once felt like readiness can begin to feel like strain. Attention becomes less flexible. The brain prioritizes monitoring over exploration. Memory shifts toward encoding what feels urgent. Neutral experiences receive less weight. Time perception changes. Moments feel compressed. The future feels closer than it is. The body continues to participate in this loop. Muscle tension becomes habitual. Breathing may remain shallow. Sleep architecture shifts. Recovery becomes incomplete. This is not breakdown. It is a system attempting to meet demand with limited information about when demand will end. Pressure also influences motivation. Effort is regulated by perceived return. When effort leads to resolution, engagement feels worthwhile. When effort does not reduce demand, motivation recalibrates. The brain begins conserving energy, not as surrender, but as strategy. Systems that are not immediately necessary reduce output. Curiosity fades. Initiative slows. This conservation protects against depletion, yet it can feel like loss of drive. Internally, the system is recalculating cost. Attention shifts inward or narrows further. The body communicates these changes through sensation, heaviness, fatigue, reduced responsiveness. These sensations are messages, not judgments. Messages about resource availability. Pressure is also shaped by context. Predictability reduces its impact. Unpredictability amplifies it. The same demand feels lighter when its duration is known, heavier when its end is unclear. The brain tolerates high effort when it can anticipate relief. Uncertainty removes that anticipation. Sustained uncertainty keeps systems activated. Modern environments often supply continuous low-level pressure, notifications, expectations, background noise, social evaluation. None are individually overwhelming. Together they maintain activation. The nervous system adapts by holding a baseline of readiness. Readiness becomes normal. Normal feels permanent. Yet regulation remains dynamic beneath the surface. Thresholds shift gradually. Systems search for equilibrium. When signals of safety appear consistently, routines, stable rhythms, predictable outcomes, the brain begins to loosen its grip. Cortisol rhythms normalize. Attention broadens. Energy redistribution becomes more balanced. Pressure does not disappear. It becomes proportionate. The body and brain are not designed to avoid pressure entirely. They are designed to move through it, to tighten when necessary, to release when possible. Understanding this reframes pressure not as a flaw of modern life, but as an ancient response navigating unfamiliar conditions, adapting continuously, conserving where needed, engaging where possible, responding not to ideals but to information. And this response continues quietly, moment by moment, adjusting to the shape of demand as it unfolds. Pressure reshapes perception before it reshapes behavior. The mind does not simply register demand, it reorganizes around it. Attention becomes selective. Information related to performance, consequence, or potential failure rises to the foreground. Peripheral details lose relevance. This narrowing is efficient under clear, time-limited demand. It allows the brain to reduce noise and focus on what matters most. Yet when pressure remains unresolved, narrowed attention becomes the default. Flexibility decreases. The ability to shift focus weakens. Thoughts return to the same themes repeatedly, not out of choice, but because the system is conserving cognitive energy by reusing familiar pathways. This repetition is often mistaken for rumination. Internally, it is prioritization under constraint. Memory participates in this process. Experiences associated with pressure are encoded more strongly, especially those linked to uncertainty or effort without closure. The hippocampus tags these moments as important because they carry predictive value. The brain uses them to anticipate future demand. Over time, recall becomes biased toward moments of strain, not because ease was absent, but because ease required no response. The nervous system remembers what demanded action. Pressure also alters the sense of time. When demand is high, the brain accelerates prediction. The future feels closer. Deadlines feel imminent. Even distant obligations feel present. This compression of time increases urgency. Urgency maintains activation. Activation feeds back into time perception. The loop sustains itself. In contrast, when energy conservation begins to dominate, time may feel slowed or heavy. Tasks feel distant. Initiating action feels costly. Both experiences arise from the same regulatory system adjusting to perceived feasibility. Neither reflects laziness or failure. They reflect different strategies for managing load. The body remains an active participant throughout. Prolonged pressure alters posture. Shoulders lift, muscles brace, the jaw tightens. These changes reduce vulnerability but increase energy expenditure. Breathing adapts as well. Shallow or rapid patterns support readiness but limit recovery. Over time, these patterns can persist beyond immediate demand. The body learns them. Habit forms, not as choice, but as efficiency. Unlearning requires consistent signals that readiness is no longer required. Pressure also interacts with reward processing. Reward is not pleasure alone. It is the signal that effort leads to outcome. When effort resolves demand, reward pathways reinforce engagement. When effort fails to reduce pressure, reward signaling weakens. Dopamine activity adjusts accordingly. Motivation declines not because value disappears, but because feasibility is questioned. The system avoids investing energy where return is uncertain. This recalibration protects against depletion, yet it can feel like disengagement. Internally, the system is preserving capacity. Social context amplifies or softens these effects. Evaluative environments increase pressure by adding uncertainty about outcome and belonging. Predictability reduces it. Even subtle cues of judgment can elevate internal load. The nervous system reads implication quickly, before conscious interpretation. Modern social structures often maintain low-level evaluation, performance metrics, visibility, comparison. These signals accumulate, maintaining activation without clear endpoint. The brain responds by holding readiness. Readiness feels normal. Normal feels permanent. Yet regulation remains responsive beneath the surface. Sleep becomes a critical factor here. Pressure alters sleep architecture. Light sleep increases. Deep restorative stages may shorten. This reduces recovery. Reduced recovery increases sensitivity to pressure. The cycle tightens. Circadian rhythm disruption further complicates regulation. Irregular light exposure and timing confuse internal clocks. Confusion sustains vigilance. The system cannot predict when rest will occur. Unpredictability keeps reserves guarded. Despite this, adaptation continues quietly. Biological systems seek efficiency. When pressure becomes the norm, thresholds adjust. What once triggered response may trigger less. This adaptation allows function to continue, but it also narrows range. Flexibility decreases. Recovery slows. The system is not broken. It is operating near capacity. Capacity can expand or contract depending on input. Input includes not only demand, but relief. Consistent relief signals allow recalibration. Inconsistent relief delays it. The nervous system does not respond to promises of rest. It responds to patterns. When patterns change reliably, regulation follows. Pressure then becomes contextual rather than global. Effort aligns with demand. Recovery becomes possible. The system regains range, able to tighten when needed, able to release when allowed, continuing its quiet negotiation with the environment, always balancing information about cost, safety, and available energy, responding not to expectation, but to what is repeatedly experienced over time. Pressure also influences how the brain interprets bodily signals. Sensations that might otherwise pass unnoticed become salient under load. Heartbeats feel louder. Breathing is monitored more closely. Muscle tension is registered as information. This increased interoceptive awareness is not a disorder. It is heightened monitoring. The brain checks the body to assess readiness and resource availability. When pressure persists, this monitoring can become continuous. Sensations are interpreted as indicators of capacity or risk. The body becomes a dashboard, yet the signals themselves are neutral. It is the context of demand that gives them weight. Energy allocation shifts alongside this monitoring. Systems related to growth, repair, and long-term maintenance reduce activity under sustained pressure. Digestion may slow. Immune processes adjust. The body prioritizes immediate function over long-term investment. This prioritization is adaptive in short durations. It preserves function when demand is high, but prolonged reallocation has consequences for recovery and resilience. The brain remains aware of this cost. It compensates by encouraging conservation when possible. Conservation may appear as reduced initiative or withdrawal from optional activity. Internally, it is resource management. Another subtle effect of pressure involves learning style. Under high demand, learning becomes procedural and repetitive. The system favors what is already known. Exploration decreases because novelty carries cost. Mistakes feel expensive. Error tolerance narrows. This focus supports reliability but limits creativity. As pressure eases, learning style broadens. Curiosity returns. Mistakes regain informational value rather than threat value. This shift signals restored flexibility. Flexibility allows adaptation to new conditions rather than rigid repetition. Social learning is affected as well. Under pressure, attention to others' cues increases. Tone, expression, and timing are monitored for signs of expectation or evaluation. This sensitivity evolved to protect social standing and access to resources. Modern environments often amplify these cues through constant visibility. The nervous system treats them as signals of demand. Sustained exposure maintains activation. Relief arrives when social input becomes predictable and non-evaluative. Predictability communicates safety. Safety allows regulation to loosen. Pressure also alters narrative. The internal story becomes more immediate. Language shifts toward obligation and necessity. Future-oriented thinking narrows. Planning focuses on avoiding negative outcomes rather than pursuing growth. This narrative is not pessimism, it is prioritization. When regulation improves, narrative complexity returns. Multiple possibilities can coexist. Nuance becomes affordable. Identity adjusts accordingly. Prolonged pressure can shape self-description: reliable, driven, exhausted. These descriptions feel accurate because they reflect lived experience, yet they are states, not definitions. When conditions change, expression changes. Identity lags behind physiology. Understanding this lag prevents confusion when new capacities appear before self-concept updates. Time remains a critical dimension throughout. Pressure compresses time. Conservation stretches it. Both distort perception in predictable ways. Recovery involves recalibration of these internal clocks. Recalibration depends on rhythm, consistent cycles of effort and relief. Irregular cycles maintain confusion. Modern schedules often fragment rhythm, blurring boundaries between work, rest, and recovery. The nervous system responds by holding readiness. Readiness protects against surprise. Surprise is costly. Reducing surprise reduces load. Load reduction allows recalibration. Recalibration restores range. The body signals these changes subtly: improved sleep depth, spontaneous sighs, shifts in posture, moments of ease. These are not conclusions. They are indicators that the system is adjusting. Adjustment does not eliminate pressure. It contextualizes it. Pressure becomes one signal among many rather than the dominant one. The brain resumes its broader role, integrating not only demand, but possibility. The body resumes balanced investment, supporting both action and repair. This balance is dynamic. It requires ongoing input. No single change locks it in place. The nervous system remains responsive, scanning for information about cost, safety, and duration, adjusting output accordingly, sometimes tightening, sometimes releasing, always negotiating, never static. continuing the quiet work of adaptation in an environment that rarely stops asking for response. Pressure gradually teaches the nervous system what to expect from the world. Expectation becomes one of the most powerful regulators of response. When demand has been sustained, the brain learns to anticipate it even in neutral moments. This anticipation keeps systems partially activated. Readiness becomes the background state. Background states are rarely noticed until they shift, yet they shape every perception, every decision, every calculation of effort. Expectation also influences how relief is interpreted. Brief pauses may not register as meaningful because the system predicts demand will return. Prediction dampens recovery. Recovery requires trust in duration. Trust is built through repetition, not intention. When relief appears consistently and without cost, the nervous system begins to allow deeper release. Muscles soften more fully. Breathing deepens without effort. Attention widens. These changes do not announce themselves. They are felt only in contrast. Pressure also affects how the brain prioritizes information. Under load, information related to obligation, responsibility, or consequence is weighted more heavily. Signals unrelated to immediate demand are filtered out. This filtering conserves energy, yet it can make the world feel narrower, as if only a small portion of experience is available. This narrowing is not loss. It is selective allocation. As regulation improves, allocation becomes more balanced. Peripheral details return. Sensory richness increases, not because stimuli change, but because processing capacity expands. Emotional tone shifts alongside this expansion. Intensity decreases. Neutrality increases. Neutrality may feel unfamiliar at first. Intensity is easier to recognize. Neutrality feels empty only because it lacks urgency. Yet neutrality is the ground from which sustainable engagement grows. Engagement driven by neutrality is quieter but longer lasting. Pressure-driven engagement burns quickly. Another aspect shaped by sustained demand is decision fatigue. Every choice carries cost. When cost accumulates, the system simplifies decision-making. Defaults become attractive. Repetition increases. Novelty decreases. This strategy conserves resources. It reduces cognitive load, but it also limits flexibility. Flexibility returns when cost decreases. Cost decreases when demand becomes manageable. Manageability depends on predictability, scope, and duration. Short, contained challenges are easier to integrate than open-ended ones. The nervous system prefers boundaries. Boundaries allow budgeting. Without boundaries, budgeting becomes impossible. Pressure also alters social behavior. Under sustained load, social interaction may feel transactional, focused on roles and expectations rather than connection. This reflects reduced surplus energy for nuance. As regulation improves, interaction regains depth. Listening feels less effortful. Presence becomes possible without monitoring. This shift does not require changes in others. It reflects internal capacity returning. Bodily regulation supports this change. The vagus nerve plays a role in shifting between mobilization and restoration. When activation dominates, vagal tone decreases. When restoration becomes possible, vagal influence increases. Heart rate variability improves. This physiological flexibility supports emotional and cognitive flexibility. Flexibility again emerges as the central theme. Pressure reduces flexibility to maintain function. Relief restores it. Neither state is wrong. Both serve purpose. Problems arise when systems remain locked in one mode without opportunity to transition. Transition requires signals. Signals arrive through experience. consistent experience, not through explanation alone. The brain learns safety through repetition. It learns demand through repetition as well. Whichever pattern repeats more strongly becomes the baseline. Baselines are not permanent. They are averages over time. Changing the average requires time. Patience becomes relevant not as virtue, but as necessity. Biology updates slowly to protect against false signals. False safety carries risk. Cautious updating preserves survival. Modern environments challenge this logic by presenting constant low-level demand. The nervous system responds appropriately, yet appropriately can still feel uncomfortable. Understanding this reduces self-blame. Discomfort does not imply malfunction. It implies adaptation under strain. Adaptation continues as long as conditions continue to change. Even subtle changes matter. Slightly more predictability, slightly clearer boundaries, slightly more consistent relief. These inputs accumulate. Thresholds shift. Reactions soften. The system regains room to move. Movement allows choice. Choice allows agency. Agency restores meaning, not suddenly, but gradually, through a series of small recalibrations that rarely draw attention. The nervous system does not seek comfort. It seeks accuracy. Accurate prediction allows efficient response. When prediction improves, pressure becomes easier to carry, not lighter in weight, but better distributed, carried with less friction, allowing the body and brain to function without constant strain, continuing their quiet negotiation with a world that alternates between demand and relief, adapting continuously, responding to what is, rather than what is feared or anticipated, staying responsive, flexible, and open to recalibration as conditions evolve. Pressure also shapes how meaning is assigned to effort itself. Effort under sustained demand often loses its intrinsic quality and becomes purely instrumental. Actions are taken because they must be taken, not because they feel chosen. This shift alters emotional tone. Engagement feels obligatory rather than expressive. The nervous system prioritizes completion over satisfaction. Completion signals potential relief. Satisfaction is secondary. When relief does not arrive, the system revises its expectations. Effort becomes more cautious. Output is maintained only where necessary. Optional engagement fades. This recalibration is not loss of interest. It is protection against wasted energy. Meaning reorganizes around necessity. As regulation improves, effort regains texture. Actions feel connected to intention rather than survival. This change does not require motivation to be summoned. It follows restored feasibility. Feasibility depends on the brain's estimate of cost relative to resources. When resources increase or demand narrows, feasibility improves. The system allows fuller engagement. Pressure also alters how feedback is processed. Under high load, feedback is scanned for error and threat. Neutral or positive feedback may carry less weight. The brain prioritizes what could increase demand. This bias keeps systems alert, but it also skews perception. Over time, the absence of negative feedback may not register as safety. Only its presence registers as risk. Safety requires repetition. The nervous system needs consistent confirmation that demand will not escalate. Without this confirmation, alertness remains. Bodily signals again contribute to this process. Sustained tension communicates ongoing readiness, even when circumstances change. Releasing tension requires evidence that release is safe. Evidence arrives through repeated uneventful moments, moments without consequence, moments that pass without escalation. These moments are easy to overlook, yet they are essential for recalibration. Pressure also influences creativity and problem-solving. Creativity requires tolerance for uncertainty and access to exploratory reward signaling. Sustained demand narrows both. Solutions become functional rather than innovative. This is efficient under constraint. Novelty carries risk. As regulation improves, creative range returns, not as sudden inspiration, but as incremental flexibility. New associations appear. Alternatives feel thinkable. This shift reflects restored bandwidth rather than deliberate effort. Social perception follows similar rules. Under pressure, others are perceived through their demands and expectations. Relational nuance becomes secondary. Interaction is evaluated for cost. When capacity returns, perception broadens. Others are seen more fully. Tone and context regain importance. This change often surprises people because it occurs without external change. The environment remains the same. Processing has changed. Time perception continues to adjust alongside these shifts. Urgency fades. Pacing slows. The future no longer presses as tightly against the present. This does not eliminate responsibility. It restores proportion. Proportion allows planning without panic. Planning without panic allows sustained effort. Sustained effort allows recovery to coexist with action. Recovery no longer waits for exhaustion. It becomes part of rhythm. Rhythm stabilizes regulation. Regulation supports rhythm. The body signals these changes quietly. Variability in breathing, ease in movement, spontaneous pauses. These are signs of flexibility returning. Flexibility allows systems to adapt to fluctuating demand rather than resisting it. Resistance increases cost. Adaptation reduces friction. Pressure is then carried differently, not as a constant weight, but as a variable force, tightening when required, releasing when possible. This capacity to modulate response defines effective regulation, not the absence of pressure, but the ability to respond proportionately. Proportion emerges when prediction improves. Prediction improves through consistent experience, not through explanation. The nervous system trusts what it encounters repeatedly. When repeated experience includes boundaries, relief, and recovery, regulation adjusts, thresholds shift, reactions soften, engagement becomes sustainable, meaning expands beyond necessity. This expansion is not dramatic, it is practical. It allows life to include effort without constant strain. It allows rest without guilt. It allows uncertainty without collapse. These qualities reflect a system operating within its adaptive range, responding accurately to information about demand and capacity, maintaining balance not by avoiding pressure, but by integrating it, continuously, quietly, adapting as conditions evolve, without final resolution, because adaptation itself is the ongoing process. Pressure also alters how the brain evaluates continuity. Continuity is the sense that effort today connects meaningfully to outcomes tomorrow. When continuity feels intact, endurance feels possible. When continuity breaks, effort feels fragmented. Sustained demand without visible resolution weakens this connection. Actions feel isolated, disconnected from longer arcs. The nervous system responds by narrowing focus to the immediate task. This narrowing preserves function but reduces sense of direction. Direction returns when continuity is restored. Continuity depends less on certainty and more on coherence. Coherent patterns of demand and relief allow the brain to link present effort to future state. Incoherent patterns disrupt this linkage. Modern environments often fragment continuity through rapid switching, competing priorities, interruptions. The system adapts by remaining alert and conservative, conserving resources for what cannot be predicted. Bodily systems mirror this strategy. Energy is released in smaller increments. Reserves are guarded. Fatigue becomes uneven rather than complete. This unevenness can feel confusing, not fully exhausted, not fully restored. It reflects ongoing calibration rather than failure. Pressure also shapes how the brain processes hope. Hope is not optimism. It is a prediction that effort will matter. Under sustained demand, hope becomes conditional, delayed, cautious. The system avoids investing in predictions that might not pay off. This is not despair, it is risk management. As regulation improves, hope returns in modest forms, small expectations, limited horizons. These modest predictions are safer. They allow gradual rebuilding of confidence. Confidence grows from repeated accuracy. Accuracy requires stable conditions. Another subtle effect of pressure involves moral evaluation. Under high load, moral reasoning simplifies. Choices are evaluated through necessity rather than principle. Right becomes what reduces demand. Wrong becomes what increases it. This simplification is efficient. Nuance is costly. As capacity returns, moral reasoning regains depth. Competing values can be held simultaneously. This expansion reflects restored bandwidth, not change in character. Social trust follows similar patterns. Sustained pressure reduces tolerance for ambiguity in others. Intentions are inferred quickly. Benefit of the doubt shrinks. This protects against exploitation, but it also limits connection. As regulation improves, trust becomes easier, not because risk disappears, but because capacity to manage it increases. Bodily regulation supports this shift. When autonomic balance improves, social engagement systems become more active. Facial muscles soften, vocal tone varies, eye contact feels less effortful. These signals influence interaction automatically, creating feedback loops of safety. Pressure also interacts with self-monitoring. Under load, self-monitoring increases. Performance is tracked closely. Errors feel significant. This vigilance consumes resources. Resources are diverted from creativity and presence. As regulation loosens, self-monitoring relaxes. Attention turns outward. Engagement feels less effortful. Mistakes regain proportion. Learning becomes possible without threat. Time perception continues to recalibrate. Moments regain depth. Pacing feels more natural, neither rushed nor stalled. This temporal balance supports sustained engagement. Sustained engagement supports learning and adaptation. Adaptation feeds back into prediction. Prediction refines regulation. The cycle gradually stabilizes. Stability does not mean static. It means responsive. Responsive systems can adjust without overreacting. They can absorb variation without collapsing or tightening excessively. Pressure then becomes informative rather than overwhelming. It signals demand without dictating identity. The system recognizes pressure as transient input rather than permanent condition. This recognition does not require conscious affirmation. It emerges through repeated experience of manageable demand, of effort followed by relief, of boundaries that hold. These experiences recalibrate expectation. Expectation reshapes regulation. Regulation reshapes perception and meaning. The process is incremental, rarely dramatic, often unnoticed until contrast appears. A moment of ease, a task begun without resistance, a pause that does not feel dangerous. These moments indicate that internal systems are shifting, not toward perfection, but toward balance that can be maintained. Balance allows life to include effort, uncertainty, and change without constant strain. It allows pressure to exist without dominating, allowing the body and brain to continue their adaptive work, adjusting continuously, responding to what is present, releasing what is no longer required, remaining flexible within an environment that continues to ask for response, and doing so with increasing efficiency as prediction improves, carrying pressure not as a burden, but as information integrated into a wider, more stable regulatory landscape. Pressure also influences how the brain interprets success and completion. Under sustained demand, completion rarely feels complete. One task ends and another appears immediately. The nervous system learns that finishing does not equal relief. Relief becomes uncertain. Uncertain relief weakens the reward signal normally associated with completion. Satisfaction fades quickly. The system shifts toward maintenance rather than fulfillment. Effort becomes about preventing escalation rather than achieving closure. This is efficient under continuous demand. It keeps the organism functional, but it also flattens emotional contrast. Moments blend together. Accomplishment loses texture. As regulation improves, completion regains meaning, not because outcomes change, but because relief becomes predictable again. Predictability allows the brain to release tension when tasks end. This release restores contrast. Effort feels bounded. Rest feels earned. Pressure also reshapes how the brain handles anticipation. Anticipation is a forward-facing process. It prepares resources for what is coming. Under manageable demand, anticipation is flexible. It adjusts as information changes. Under sustained pressure, anticipation becomes rigid. The system prepares for worst-case scenarios because they are costly to miss. This rigidity keeps activation high. It also limits openness to alternative outcomes. As regulation loosens, anticipation becomes probabilistic rather than absolute. Multiple futures can be held at once. This reduces internal load. Flexibility returns. Bodily systems mirror this change. Heart rate variability increases. Breathing patterns diversify. Muscle tone shifts from braced to responsive. These physiological markers reflect improved adaptability. Adaptability allows the system to respond appropriately rather than maximally. Pressure also affects how errors are integrated. Under high load, errors are encoded strongly. They are treated as signals of increased future demand. Learning becomes defensive. Avoid mistakes at all cost. As capacity returns, errors regain informational value. They guide adjustment rather than provoke alarm. This shift allows growth without exhaustion. Social environments continue to modulate these processes. Contexts that emphasize constant optimization sustain pressure. Contexts that allow adequacy reduce it. Adequacy signals sufficiency. Sufficiency allows regulation to settle. Modern culture often undervalues sufficiency. It prioritizes continuous improvement. The nervous system responds by maintaining readiness. Readiness consumes energy. Energy consumption without recovery leads to conservation. Conservation narrows engagement. Understanding this loop clarifies why slowing does not automatically produce ease. Ease requires consistency. Consistency allows trust. Trust allows release. Release restores balance. Balance supports sustainable effort. Sustainable effort allows participation without depletion. Pressure also alters how the brain experiences choice. Choice requires perceived freedom. Under sustained demand, choices feel constrained. Options are evaluated primarily for cost, not interest. Interest returns when cost decreases. Cost decreases when boundaries appear. Boundaries define scope and duration. The nervous system prefers clear edges. Edges allow budgeting. Without edges, everything feels potentially demanding. Budgeting fails. The system responds by guarding reserves. Guarding reserves limits engagement. This logic applies across domains: work, relationships, even leisure. Unstructured leisure can feel demanding under pressure because boundaries are unclear. As regulation improves, openness becomes less costly. Choice regains appeal. Exploration becomes possible. This does not require new motivation. It requires reduced load. Reduced load allows the brain to revisit possibilities without urgency. Time perception shifts again. Moments feel fuller. Pacing stabilizes, neither rushed nor stagnant. This temporal balance supports reflection. Reflection supports learning. Learning refines prediction. Prediction improves regulation. The loop stabilizes further. Pressure becomes one variable among many rather than the organizing principle. Identity adjusts quietly. Self-description shifts from survival-based to capacity-based, not through affirmation, through experience. The nervous system updates its model of what is manageable. Manageable expands gradually. Expansion feels ordinary rather than dramatic. Ordinariness signals regulation. Extremes attract attention. Balance does not. Yet balance supports continuity. Continuity allows life to proceed with variation rather than strain. The system remains responsive, tightening when needed, releasing when possible, integrating pressure as information rather than threat, continuing its adaptive work across changing conditions, without final state, without resolution, simply maintaining equilibrium within a world that alternates between demand and relief, responding accurately, conserving wisely, engaging where feasible, and remaining open to further recalibration as experience unfolds. Pressure also shapes how the brain relates to uncertainty over long stretches of time. Uncertainty is not merely the absence of information. It is an active signal that keeps prediction systems engaged. When outcomes remain unclear, the brain allocates resources toward monitoring rather than resolution. Monitoring feels busy but unproductive. It consumes energy without producing closure. Sustained monitoring becomes expensive. The nervous system compensates by narrowing focus and reducing optional engagement. This reduction is protective. It limits exposure to additional unknowns, yet it also constrains experience. As regulation improves, uncertainty becomes less dominant, not because certainty appears, but because the system gains confidence in its ability to respond. Confidence is not belief, it is capacity. Capacity allows uncertainty to exist without continuous monitoring. The brain no longer treats every unknown as urgent. Unknowns become background rather than foreground. This shift reduces internal load significantly. Bodily systems reflect this change. Baseline muscle tone decreases. Breathing becomes less constrained. Digestive processes regain rhythm. These changes support recovery even while demand continues. Pressure also influences how the brain prioritizes self-evaluation. Under sustained demand, self-evaluation becomes frequent and narrow. Performance is tracked closely. Deviations feel meaningful. This vigilance aims to prevent escalation, but it also increases internal noise. As regulation loosens, self-evaluation becomes less central. Attention shifts outward. Engagement feels less effortful. Performance improves not through control, but through reduced interference. This paradox often surprises people. Less monitoring leads to better function. The nervous system operates more efficiently when not constantly checking itself. Social comparison intensifies under pressure. Comparison offers quick information about adequacy and risk. It simplifies evaluation, yet it also increases load. As regulation improves, comparison loses urgency. Internal cues regain authority. Decisions feel more grounded. This shift reflects restored trust in internal regulation. Pressure also affects how the brain experiences novelty. Novelty requires energy and flexibility. Under load, novelty feels risky. Familiar patterns are preferred. Familiarity reduces prediction cost. As capacity returns, novelty becomes tolerable again. Curiosity reappears quietly, not as excitement, but as openness. Openness signals surplus. Surplus allows exploration. Exploration updates prediction. Updated prediction reduces unnecessary activation. The loop continues. Bodily signals remain integral throughout. Sensations of ease are not dramatic. They are subtle. A deeper breath without intention. A pause that feels natural. A task begun without resistance. These moments indicate recalibration. They are evidence that internal systems are responding to changed input. Pressure also alters how boundaries are perceived. Under sustained demand, boundaries feel porous. Responsibilities bleed into one another. Rest feels conditional. The nervous system responds by holding readiness across contexts. Readiness becomes global. As regulation improves, boundaries regain clarity. Contexts differentiate. Effort can stop and start more cleanly. This differentiation reduces load. The system no longer needs to remain prepared for everything at once. Time perception stabilizes alongside this change. The present feels spacious enough to hold both effort and rest. Neither dominates. This balance supports sustainable engagement. Sustainable engagement supports learning. Learning refines regulation. Pressure then becomes integrated rather than resisted. It informs action without overwhelming it. Identity continues to adjust. Self-concept shifts from reactive to responsive, not through affirmation, but through repeated experience of manageability. Manageability expands gradually. Expansion feels ordinary. Ordinariness is often overlooked, yet it is the clearest sign of regulation returning to balance. Extremes draw attention. Balance supports continuity. Continuity allows life to proceed without constant strain. The nervous system remains vigilant when needed, conserving when required, releasing when allowed, always negotiating between demand and capacity, integrating pressure as one signal among many, adjusting thresholds slowly, protecting against false safety, remaining open to recalibration as conditions change. This quiet adaptability defines biological resilience, not the absence of pressure, but the ability to carry it without losing range, to respond without becoming fixed, to engage without depletion, and to continue functioning within a complex world that offers no permanent resolution, only ongoing variation, to which the body and brain respond with remarkable persistence, adjusting moment by moment, guided by information rather than expectation, maintaining equilibrium not as a final state, but as a continuous process unfolding across time. Pressure also influences how the brain learns to prioritize recovery. Recovery is not simply the absence of effort. It is an active biological process that requires conditions of safety and predictability. When pressure remains high, recovery becomes fragmented. Short pauses occur, but deeper restoration is postponed. The nervous system treats rest as provisional, something that can be interrupted at any moment. This keeps certain systems partially engaged even during downtime. Energy is conserved but not fully restored. Over time, the brain adapts to this pattern. It lowers expectations of recovery. It learns to function without complete reset. This adaptation allows continuity, but it narrows resilience. As regulation improves, recovery becomes more efficient, not longer, but deeper, fewer interruptions, clearer transitions between effort and rest. These transitions matter more than duration. The nervous system responds strongly to boundaries. Boundaries signal when readiness can be released. Without boundaries, readiness persists. Pressure also reshapes how internal signals are trusted. Under sustained demand, the brain relies less on subtle cues and more on urgency. Gentle signals are ignored. Only strong sensations register. This raises the threshold for awareness. Fatigue must become intense to be noticed. Tension must become pain. This delayed recognition increases cost. As regulation improves, sensitivity returns. Early signals are detected again. Small shifts in energy or tension guide behavior before overload. This sensitivity is not weakness. It is efficiency. Efficient systems adjust early rather than react late. Bodily communication becomes more nuanced. The body no longer needs to shout to be heard. Pressure also affects how the brain relates to control. Under load, control feels necessary. Monitoring increases. Flexibility decreases. Control provides predictability when the environment does not. Yet control is costly. It requires constant attention. As regulation improves, the need for control diminishes. Trust in automatic regulation increases. Actions feel less forced. Coordination improves. This shift often feels like ease returning, not because effort disappears, but because interference reduces. Interference consumes energy. Reducing it frees capacity. Social interaction reflects this change. Conversation flows more naturally. Listening requires less effort. Responses feel less calculated. This does not mean disengagement. It means reduced internal monitoring. Presence becomes possible without vigilance. Pressure also influences how the brain integrates rest with meaning. Rest under pressure feels unproductive. It carries an implicit cost. As regulation improves, rest regains legitimacy, not as reward, but as requirement. This reframing does not occur through belief. It occurs through experience. When rest repeatedly leads to improved function rather than escalation, the nervous system updates its model. Rest becomes safe. Safety allows deeper release. Release restores balance. Balance supports engagement. Engagement reinforces the value of rest. The loop stabilizes. Time perception continues to shift alongside this stabilization. Days feel less compressed. Transitions feel clearer. Moments regain definition. This temporal clarity supports planning without urgency. Urgency fades, not because demands vanish, but because capacity increases. Pressure becomes localized rather than global. It applies to specific tasks rather than the entire system. This localization reduces load dramatically. The nervous system no longer needs to prepare for everything at once. Identity adjusts quietly in response. Self-description becomes less about endurance and more about responsiveness. Not through deliberate change, through lived experience. Experience teaches the brain what is manageable. Manageability expands with consistent feedback. Feedback arrives through patterns, not through explanation. When patterns of effort, relief, and recovery repeat reliably, regulation follows. Thresholds shift, reactions soften, flexibility returns. Pressure remains part of life. It always will, but it no longer defines the entire landscape. It becomes one signal among many, informing action without dominating it. The body and brain continue their adaptive work, integrating demand with capacity, maintaining balance not by resisting pressure, but by responding to it accurately. adjusting moment by moment, guided by information rather than fear, conserving where needed, engaging where possible, remaining open to further recalibration as conditions continue to change. Pressure also shapes how the brain evaluates persistence. Persistence is often praised as endurance, yet biologically it is a calculation. How long effort can be maintained without compromising recovery. Under sustained demand, persistence becomes rigid. Stopping feels unsafe. Pausing feels like falling behind. The nervous system equates continuation with protection. This strategy maintains function when relief is uncertain, but it increases cumulative load. As regulation improves, persistence becomes flexible. Effort can pause and resume without threat. This flexibility allows energy to be allocated more efficiently. Efficiency reduces strain. Strain reduction restores choice. Pressure also influences how attention moves between internal and external worlds. Under high load, attention turns inward, monitoring energy, tension, and performance. This inward focus conserves resources but reduces engagement with the environment. As capacity returns, attention shifts outward. Sensory detail becomes accessible again. Sound, light, and movement regain presence. This outward orientation supports learning and connection. Connection feeds back into regulation. Social and environmental cues of safety reduce monitoring. Monitoring reduction highlights how much effort it required. Relief becomes noticeable only after it occurs. Pressure also alters how the brain responds to unpredictability in small doses. When load is high, even minor disruptions feel costly. Schedule changes, delays, interruptions. These events require recalculation. Recalculation consumes energy. As regulation improves, tolerance for small disruptions increases. The system can absorb variation without destabilizing. This tolerance signals restored buffer. Buffer allows adaptability. Adaptability supports resilience. Bodily signals continue to reflect these changes. Recovery between efforts shortens. Tension releases more quickly. Breathing adjusts without conscious effort. These are signs that internal systems are no longer operating at their limits. Pressure also affects how value is experienced. Under sustained demand, value becomes instrumental. Activities are judged by necessity, not enjoyment. As regulation improves, value regains texture. Moments can be appreciated without serving a purpose. This appreciation does not require excitement. It emerges as quiet satisfaction. Satisfaction signals that reward pathways are functioning again. Functioning reward pathways encourage engagement without urgency. Engagement without urgency is sustainable. Sustainable engagement supports continuity. Continuity supports meaning. Pressure also reshapes how the brain handles future planning. Under load, planning narrows to short horizons. Long-term projections feel abstract or risky. This narrowing protects against investing in uncertain futures. As capacity returns, planning horizons extend naturally. The future becomes thinkable without threat. This shift does not rely on optimism. It reflects restored tolerance for uncertainty. Tolerance allows imagination. Imagination informs direction. Direction gives effort context. Context reduces friction. Friction reduction lowers internal cost. The cycle reinforces itself. Social roles continue to influence these dynamics. Roles that demand constant responsiveness sustain pressure. Roles that allow autonomy reduce it. Autonomy communicates trust. Trust signals safety. Safety reduces monitoring. Reduced monitoring frees energy. This energy supports both effort and recovery. Pressure becomes something the system responds to rather than something it carries continuously. Identity evolves alongside this adjustment. Self-concept shifts from survival-focused to capacity-aware, not through narrative rewriting, through repeated experience of manageability. Manageability is learned, it is not declared. The nervous system updates its expectations based on what happens repeatedly, not on what is hoped. Repeated patterns of bounded effort and genuine relief recalibrate thresholds. Thresholds determine response intensity. Intensity shapes experience. As thresholds shift, experience softens, not into emptiness, into proportion. Proportion allows life to be lived without constant urgency. Pressure remains part of the environment. It always will. But it no longer monopolizes regulation. It becomes one variable among many, integrated rather than resisted, informing action without overwhelming it. The body and brain continue adjusting, refining prediction, redistributing energy, maintaining equilibrium across changing demands, not as a final achievement, but as an ongoing process that unfolds quietly, guided by information, shaped by repetition, sustained by flexibility, and carried forward through time as conditions continue to evolve. Pressure, when carried over long periods, begins to teach the nervous system subtle distinctions. Not every demand requires the same response. Not every signal deserves equal weight. This discrimination develops slowly. It is learned through repeated exposure and gradual recalibration. When systems have spent extended time near their limits, they initially respond broadly. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels relevant. This is protective. Broad activation prevents missing important cues, yet broad activation is costly. Over time, efficiency improves. The brain starts sorting signals more precisely, distinguishing between what truly requires action and what can remain background. This sorting reduces internal noise. Noise reduction frees energy. Energy availability supports refinement. Refinement allows proportion. Proportion is one of the clearest markers of regulation returning to balance. Reactions align more closely with actual demand rather than anticipated threat. Anticipation softens. Prediction becomes probabilistic rather than absolute. The future is no longer treated as a single looming event, but as a range of possible outcomes. This range allows flexibility. Flexibility allows adjustment without panic. The body mirrors this refinement. Baseline tension decreases. Muscles engage when needed and release afterward. Breathing varies naturally, neither held nor forced. Heart rhythms regain variability. These physiological shifts reflect improved coordination between systems. Coordination reduces friction. Friction reduction lowers cost. Lower cost allows engagement without depletion. Pressure remains present, but it is distributed. No single system carries it alone. Cognition, emotion, and physiology share the load more evenly. This sharing prevents overload. Overload narrows range. Range is what allows life to feel navigable rather than overwhelming. Pressure also reshapes how attention rests between moments of effort. Under sustained load, attention rarely rests fully. It hovers, scanning, preparing, even during pauses. As regulation improves, attention learns to settle, not collapse. Settle. Settling allows information to be processed more completely. Experiences integrate rather than accumulate. Integration reduces backlog. Backlog sustains urgency. Reducing backlog reduces pressure. This quiet settling often appears as moments of stillness that feel safe rather than empty. Safety is not excitement. It is absence of threat. Absence of threat allows resources to shift toward maintenance and repair. Repair supports resilience. Resilience allows future pressure to be met with less disruption. This does not remove difficulty. It changes how difficulty is carried. Another subtle shift involves how internal dialogue evolves. Under pressure, internal language becomes directive. Do this, avoid that, stay alert. This language supports function, but it is rigid. As capacity returns, language softens. Statements become observations. Questions replace commands. This shift reflects reduced need for control. Control is costly. Trust is efficient. Trust emerges when prediction improves. Prediction improves through consistent experience of manageability. Manageability expands when effort is followed by relief. Relief must be reliable to be trusted. Occasional relief is not enough. The nervous system looks for patterns. Patterns determine baselines. Baselines shape response. When relief patterns stabilize, regulation follows, slowly, cautiously, but reliably. Pressure also influences how the brain relates to purpose. Under sustained demand, purpose narrows to endurance. Just continue, just maintain. This is adaptive when conditions are harsh, but it limits growth. As regulation improves, purpose expands beyond survival. Engagement feels meaningful again, not because meaning was absent, but because capacity to access it returns. Meaning does not need to be intense. It often appears as quiet alignment. Actions feel coherent, connected, not rushed. This coherence supports motivation without urgency. Urgency consumes energy. Coherence conserves it. The body signals coherence through ease. Ease does not mean lack of effort. It means reduced resistance. Reduced resistance allows sustained participation. Pressure also shapes how the brain processes the past. Under load, the past is scanned for mistakes, lessons, warnings. Memory becomes defensive. As regulation improves, memory regains balance. Experiences are recalled for understanding rather than prevention. This shift allows learning without fear. Learning without fear expands capacity. Capacity supports adaptability. Adaptability allows pressure to be integrated rather than avoided. Integration is key. Pressure cannot be removed from life, but it can be metabolized. Metabolized pressure informs action without overwhelming systems. It becomes part of rhythm rather than disruption. Rhythm stabilizes regulation. Stable regulation supports rhythm. The loop reinforces itself. Identity continues to evolve alongside these changes. Self-concept shifts subtly, from someone who endures to someone who responds, not through declaration, through lived experience. The nervous system updates its model of what is possible. Possible expands gradually. Expansion feels ordinary. Ordinariness is often overlooked, yet it is the clearest sign that internal systems are no longer operating at their limits. Extremes attract attention. Balance sustains life. Balance allows effort and rest to coexist, allows uncertainty without collapse, allows pressure without domination. The body and brain continue their adaptive work indefinitely, scanning for information, adjusting thresholds, redistributing energy, refining prediction, responding to the world as it is rather than as it might become. This responsiveness does not eliminate challenge. It allows challenge to be met proportionately. Proportion prevents fixation. Fixation narrows experience. Proportion preserves range. Range allows choice. Choice allows agency. Agency restores meaning. And meaning supports engagement that can be sustained over time. Pressure remains a part of this system, always present in some form, but no longer central, no longer defining, integrated into a wider landscape of signals that guide response. The nervous system carries this landscape forward moment by moment. adapting continuously, without final state, without resolution, maintaining equilibrium not as an achievement, but as an ongoing process shaped by experience, by repetition, by information, unfolding quietly across time as conditions continue to change.